10 months since I was last able to announce an England squad, which is longer than we certainly expected when we left Kosovo at the end of last year. Frustrating for all of us not to be able to have been involved with the Three Lions and for the players to miss such a chunk of their England career. But it means now that we do have an incredible 2 years where we have a European Championship, a Nations League and a World Cup to aim for. And in our aim to be the best team in the world, these are significant steps we need to take. So every camp for us, every day of every camp is important. There's no question that this selection of squad has been, probably the most complicated, and this is probably going to be the most complicated camp we've had for numerous reasons. The timing in the season, factors involving the virus when we're together. So we know already that we are without Chilwell, Henderson, Barkley, Oxlade, all unavailable. And we just have to hope that we get to the weekend in a similar situation, really.
Okay, as our UK broadcast rights holders for the forthcoming games, we'll start with Rob Dorsey from Sky Sports News, who will take the opening 5 questions. After that point, to ensure fairness for all, we'll insist on one question with the option of a follow-up if needed. So as I said earlier, please remain muted and unmute yourself when to ask a question and raise your virtual hand as and when you're ready to ask the question. So without further ado, Rob, would you like to get us underway?
Hi, Gareth. Good to see you virtually. Long time no see. Listen, you've included in your squad a player who, as we speak, is on trial in Greece for aggravated assault and bribery of an official. He's pleaded not guilty, but how difficult a decision was it for you whether to include Harry Maguire or not?
Yeah, it's clearly a decision that is not straightforward, and a decision that in the end I could only take on the information that I have. I've spoken with Harry. I have the insight to the story, which is very different to what's been reported. And in these instances, I think you can only make decisions on facts that you're aware of. Now, clearly, if facts change further down the line or information changes, then I have to review that decision. But I have a fantastic relationship with the boy. Harry has been outstanding character for us. I've no reason to doubt what he's telling me. And, it's important that he knows that he's got my support at this moment.
So if he were to be found guilty, because obviously this is ongoing right now, he could be dropped from the squad still?
Well, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals of what might or might not happen, Rob, but as I said, I've got to reserve the right to review if further information becomes available. I think whenever you're in a management position, you have to make lots of decisions, and you always make decisions to the best of your ability, given the information that you have. And people might agree or disagree with those decisions. But I think that's the position every manager finds themselves, and at this moment in time, that's where I am with it. As I said, Harry regrets the fact that he's brought that sort of focus and attention on the team, and he apologised for that. But he also has his own side of the story that I think will come out in time.
Can you give us an insight into what he told you about what happened?
No, I think that's, clearly there's an ongoing trial as we speak. And, given that that's a legal matter, I don't think that would be appropriate, really.
Okay. Clearly you'll know that there'll be another side to this argument, that is Maguire's an experienced England player. He's the captain of Manchester United. That comes with a certain profile and responsibility. Should he have avoided putting himself in this position in the first place?
Well, I think we recognise that if you're a player with England that has a profile, and there are expectations, and there is also attention and focus that goes with that. And clearly, if you're the captain of a club like Manchester United, that's the same. So he's fully aware of that. And, I think it's the same for all of our players, really. We know that there's a responsibility in wider society. We have a fantastic connection with our fans. He's been a big part of that over the last couple of years. We play Iceland this week. The 4 years since we last played Iceland, or however long it is, that relationship with our supporters, that engagement with our supporters is improved enormously, and we want to keep that. We want to keep improving that, and we want to keep delivering on the field. So we can't wait to get back wearing the shirt, representing our country, and looking forward to these matches.
I'm sure there'll be plenty more questions on Harry for you from elsewhere. So this will be the last one from me. Clearly, another major issue for you has been the coronavirus pandemic and testing for that. Raheem Sterling, we know, was at this party in Jamaica with Usain Bolt on Friday. Nothing wrong with that. It's not on the UK's banned list, or he doesn't need to quarantine when he gets back. But we've been told he has tested negative whilst out there for coronavirus. But it's still a concern with Usain Bolt self-isolating himself. What do you make of all of that? And is there an issue there for you?
I think we've got 7 players who, because of this finishing point of their season, are currently on holiday or certainly not training with their club. And so they're all outside of the more regular testing regime. And I think it's clear from what I've read that there have been positive tests within the Premier League, with clubs returning to that testing procedure. So we will, as a matter of course, need to test all of our players this week and when they report. We're conscious that with this virus, some of those tests the results can be delayed. That's happened previously. So we've got to be very well organised in terms of how we're prepared for our camp, which we are. Our head of medical, Charlotte Cowie, was involved in that Project Restart group with the Premier League. She's fully across all of the requirements. We've got an extra responsibility because we're bringing players from different clubs, and we've got to make our environment as secure as we can. So as a matter of course, everybody, staff, players, will be tested when they arrive. And because of the UEFA requirements and the requirements of the countries we visit, they'll be tested probably 4 or 5 times during the course of the week.
Thanks, Rob. We'll certainly come back to you if time allows. Next question from Martha Kellner at Sky News.
Hi, Gareth. Thanks for talking to us. I've been inside the court in Greece today, and police officers there are alleging that Harry Maguire threw expletives at them, that he resisted arrest, and that he attempted to bribe officers. Is that something you recognise, a description you recognise of a man that you know well?
I think, the important word used there at this present time is allegations, and there's obviously a version of events that I've been given by Harry. In terms of character of person, he's been absolutely outstanding for us, and I think the fact that Manchester United have made him their captain would highlight that from their point of view as well. And I'm sure if you speak with any of the many managers and coaches that have worked with him, he's been a delight to work with. So this is clearly a situation that none of us are enjoying, and difficult situation for him and his family.
Thank you.
Okay. A reminder to raise your hands as and when you got a question. There's no hands raised at the moment. So Rob, we'll briefly go back to you for one more.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I ask you briefly about football, Gareth? As ever, we have a lot of other things to talk to you about, but 3 first-time call-ups: Phil Foden, Mason Greenwood, and Kalvin Phillips. Can you talk to us about each of those, please? Because it's big moments for them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a nice reminder. I feel like the last 8 months I've had so many difficult conversations in various departments and areas of life generally. To be able to call a player this morning and let him know that his first England call-up was going to happen today was a lovely moment, and a reminder of how much it means to players and their families to be involved with England and selected by England. So, Kalvin is a player who we've been very impressed in this particular role he plays at Leeds. He's obviously extremely well coached. They're an impressive team to watch. It's a step up for him because he's got to adjust to life in the Premier League, but it's a position we need some competition for places in, and we're interested to look at him at this early stage of the season. I think with Phil and with Mason, we know them a bit more. They've both been very impressive with our junior teams. I think both of them were excellent in the period post-lockdown for their clubs. Both played big matches, important matches at big clubs, and had a big impact. They have the potential to be England internationals for a long time to come. As always, that is up to them and their mentality and the way they play. But we have belief in them, and we're really looking forward to working with them.
Okay, Rob, we'll allow you one more.
If I can get my mute button back on. Gareth, on a slightly separate issue, we've spoken to a member of the England band this morning who says that they will happily discuss with the FA the issue of Rule Britannia, which is one of the songs that they play, and discuss whether you think it's appropriate that they should be playing it in the current climate because of its associations with colonialism and slavery. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has come out and says he thinks that's ridiculous, and he's criticised the BBC for not using the lyrics at Last Night of the Proms. Easy one for you. What's the England manager's view?
It's not really a question I was expecting, Rob. I don't really think it's, given the list of topics we're going to have to cover, I don't think that's one for me to get involved with, really. So I think I'd rather stick with the football if possible.
Fair enough, thank you.
Okay, next question from Mark White at 442.
Hi, Gareth. Nick Pope had a great season last year. So did Dean Henderson. Both from the squad with Jordan Pickford. But do you have an idea who your first choice goalkeeper will be?
I think we've had a period of 10 months without a game. And within that period, there's been various fluctuations in form and across every position. So although we had great momentum before the break, I think for every international team, that momentum stopped, and we've got to find a way of, restarting with the team, reconnecting with the team, getting back up to speed with how we work. And there's competition for places in every position on the pitch. So, I can only say of Jordan that his 24 caps for us, he's been excellent. His performances for England have always been at a high level. I think it's fair to say he's had, a challenging period with his club. But I think all of the goalkeepers on the list have had good moments and goals that have gone in that they would have hoped to do better with. So we're looking forward to getting back working with them first and foremost. It's for them to go and claim the shirt.
Okay, thanks, Mark. A reminder that as and when you've got a question, please raise your virtual hand on Zoom if you're having issues with that. Yep, and next question, that's Sam Matterface from ITV.
Hi, Gareth. You seem to have a lot of players in the squad that can play at right back and can fill in those positions, but the squad seems a little bit light on the other side. What are your proposed solutions for that?
Yeah, we've got, I think we will need to be adaptable for sure. I think the injury to Ben Chilwell in particular, Luke Shaw also injured, Danny Rose, we felt at this moment in time, we feel Danny's performances need to be a little bit better. So we have got options in players that can play on the other side, players that have played in that position before. It's not ideal. We could look tactically at something different if needed. But you're right, it's a position that is definitely up for grabs.
Okay, next question. Jack Pitbrook at The Athletic.
Hi, Gareth. Eric Dier enjoyed a good run of form after lockdown, back in his favoured position of centre-back. Is that the position you now see him playing for England going forward?
Well, we've selected Eric in the squad as a centre-back in the knowledge that, if we needed him to play in midfield, he could do that job for us as well. And when you're going to tournaments and when you're involved with teams, there are times, we've just talked about left back where you need versatility, and you might have to ask players to do something a little bit different as well. So I know he's keen to tie himself down as a centre back now. We were impressed with how he dealt with that I worked with him as a centre-back when he was younger, so I know what he's capable of in that position. And it's good to see him back playing regularly. You know, he had a very difficult couple of years with missing games with injury and illness. So, delighted to see him back playing.
Thanks, Jack. Next question, Mark Ogden from ESPN.
Hi, Gareth. It's going to be a strange season this year in terms of the lack of break that your players have had. I mean, some players will have played from June pretty much straight through to the end of next year. So how do you see your players turning up at the Euros next year? What sort of condition will they be in? And is there any way you can help their freshness and, avoid them having burnout before the tournament?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. In that
I'm seeing a couple of people.
There's not one solution to this, because I know a lot of people are talking about the number of games the players have played, but last season was unique. It was a season interrupted with a very long break, probably a longer break than any of the players have ever had. And although they would have kept themselves ticking over in that period and would have trained individually, that's not the same in terms of their workload and the stress of playing. They then have had a short break, which I think psychologically is important for all of them. You know, they need to psychologically recover. But physically at this moment, they'll be okay. In terms of overload, I don't have a concern. I think that concern, we've got to get the training schedule right, because some are adapting back into pre-season periods and some will be joining us straight from holiday, basically. But definitely December, January, post-Christmas, I think there's a challenge for everybody. And I think every coach in the league and every club in the league, as well as ourselves internationally, would have a concern over how that's all managed. The calendar is packed. It needs collaboration from everybody to try and resolve that. It's easy to try and cram everybody's desires in terms of their own competitions. But the reality is, the best players end up playing in the most matches. We've got to try and play our part in navigating that. The easiest way to do that is to have the strongest possible squad, and you can help to manage minutes from our point of view. But we also have a responsibility with our training schedule to make sure we get that right.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Jack Pitbrook has come back in with a follow-up question.
I haven't, sorry.
That was an old hand. Good.
No, I haven't got a follow-up question. Someone else.
Okay, ITV News have hand raised. Whoever is the individual there, far away.
Yeah, hi, Gareth. Sorry to return to Harry Maguire again. This will probably happen again, I guess. Was it a difficult decision for you to include Harry Maguire in your squad?
Well, it's a decision that we've taken time to think through. The most important thing for me was to get Harry's the information from Harry as to what exactly happened and his version of events, because there's no point in me making judgments on speculative stories. So as I said, given the information that I've got at this moment in time, I felt the right thing to do was to select Harry, and I'm comfortable with that decision as we sit here.
You've talked about his character a lot already. Are you happy he's the kind of man who can live with any distractions from off the field?
Yeah, I think he's very conscious of his responsibilities. At this moment in time, he will be very keen to just get back training and playing football. So, I think when you're playing with England and you're playing at a club like Manchester United, you're always in the spotlight. There's always pressure on your performances. So that's not a new situation for him to be in. The specifics of this obviously are, but he's more than capable of dealing with everything.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Dan Rowan at BBC News.
Thanks, Andy. Hello, Gareth. Notwithstanding everything that you've said in the last few minutes, Gareth, were you a little surprised, given how impressed you've been with Harry's character in recent years, his leadership qualities, that he was in the position that he found himself in? Obviously, we don't know exactly the circumstances, as you've said, whether there was provocation, mitigation, but
nonetheless, he was in a very public place. He's a high-profile fellow. A lot of drink had been consumed by what we've heard in court. Do you think that regardless of the rights and wrongs of exactly what happened, you'd expect him to have avoided getting into that predicament in the first place?
Well, I think that the rights and wrongs of what happened are critical to the second part of the question. So I don't think we can separate one from the other, and I think that's key. As I said, it's easy to read sort of second, third-hand reports and witness things, but I can't really make a decision based on that. I don't think that would be correct. So I've not taken the decision lightly. I've taken my time on the decision and consulted with other people, but I have to go on the evidence that I have.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Okay, we're coming to the last couple of minutes. So we'll go back and finish with final two questions from Rob Dorsey at Sky Sports News.
Thanks, Andy. Gareth, one more on Raheem Sterling, if that's okay. It's very hard to be critical of players that are trying to get a break in and a holiday when the facts are very fluid, if you like, about where they can go safely. There's no problem with going to Jamaica. It's not on the quarantine list. But he was clearly in a party of more than 20 people, which is against Jamaican rules. Do you have any criticism of Raheem for putting himself in that situation, or any other players that might have done similarly?
I think we have to be very careful about, singling people out, because, I've seen lots of things across society during this period, and some are commented on, some aren't. All of our players have been on holiday. With some we've seen pictures of things they've been doing, with others we haven't. In my view, the players needed a break. They were in a very intense period with their clubs. They know that there doesn't look like there's a break in the calendar for the next 10 months. So, in my mind, having been a player, there was a need for them to go and relax and unwind. And I think for all of them, they were in such a strict testing regime while they were with their clubs that there's maybe been, with some of them, a sort of feeling that, the way they were operating with their clubs, they've just kind of switched off a bit from that. And I think key for us when we get back together is that, we've got to make sure that as we get back into operating together and the regular testing, that we're back onto social distancing, that we're making sure that we're doing our bit to ensure the virus doesn't spread any further, and that we keep our players safe and we get them to the start line and on the pitch in the best possible condition to go and play well.
Thank you. Last one, let's end on a positive. I don't think you've spoken specifically about Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood, who of course could have played in any of the younger age groups. The 21s, I think, are meeting up at this point, whereas maybe the younger age groups aren't. Why did you feel it was important for those two both to be part of the senior squad? And talk about them individually, because they've both been incredibly impressive this season, haven't they?
They have. I mean, I think with young players, you're aware, if you're within football, you've known about these two boys for a long time. You only have to speak to people at their clubs. We know from their junior teams with England the impact they've had. Then the question is, at what point do you give them the step up to play? With Phil, we've watched for a long time. We felt at times last year that it was better for him to get football with our under-21s. There were moments where he wasn't getting regular game time, and we felt that was a good part of his development. But we've known that he was likely to be a player that would be involved with the England senior team, and we feel now is a good moment to do that. And similarly with Mason, if you'd said to me 3 or 4 months ago, we'd have probably been saying, well, we know there's a high quality player. We know he's having a very good season. Maybe it's a bit early to put him up to the senior team. But the reality is his performances and his goal scoring have been so good that he's earned the right. And they give us competition for places in the squad. They give us a high level of player. and they can now go and grab that opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes this media conference. We'll head to the radio briefing next, so can those involved dial into the relevant link, and we'll join you in the next couple of minutes.